know. You never know.
Everyone loves to have an opinion about somebody else instead of like, obviously figuring out their own shit.
Right.
It's easier to do too, like somebody who's fallen from the graces.
100%.
Because also their boy or their buddy might have really liked him. And since he failed, it's almost like they have another way to project their baggage on even just a buddy, not even Johnny.
It's interesting for me when I started getting on the spiritual vibe and then, you know, being somewhat of a public figure, obviously just understanding the dynamic of like having a bunch of people watching, you know, or at least it feels that way. Like you have eyes on you and like, and Johnny's 100x of that. At one point he was, you know, almost A-list famous, I would argue.
Oh yeah.
And it really has been interesting for me to it was a breakthrough for me, perspective-wise, when I just kind of zoomed out of the situation. I was just like, man, why does it impact their life whatsoever if Johnny Manziel doesn't want to use his God-given ability? Why the fuck? You know what I'm saying? Like, even like what you said on the bus, because I liked your question. You're like, yo, like, what do you say for a guy like me who's like hustled and like, I didn't have this God's given, like I had to fucking hustle to get here and just make a roster. Like I would die for the opportunities you got, right?
Right.
But there's ego in that.
Oh, absolutely.
That's your ego. Like, what the fuck does your ability have to do with his?
Right.
What the fuck does his decision making have to do with anyone else's?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, for me, I realized, I mean, dude, I do it all the time. I had so much ego in every outlook of every situation. Like, everyone wants to take ownership or have some stake in everything. Like, man, Cleveland Brown, like, man, the Browns are my team, you fucked up. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, that's my outlook on it. It's just like, Johnny literally was like I've been around him for a long time. He was in a dark place. At one point, I was just like, not a guy you could say, hey, Johnny, put the fucking drinks down, bro. And he'll be like, all right, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fucking Tom Brady could
Appreciate you for looking
Tom Brady
out.
would be there and he'd fucking turn around and do a chug bud. You know what I mean? Like, and it was scary for a while, but I always knew his heart and how much of a nice, like I guess, you know, I feel like I have a pretty good gauge on that, just like if you're a nice person. And he always was, no matter what. He could be fucked up. He used to do hard shit. Like, he was fucking rocking for a while in LA. But like, bro, if I needed to pull him this, he'd have a heart to heart. He could have a heart to heart and say really meaningful, impactful stuff. It was never above any of that. You know what I mean? Always had those qualities, you know? But to your point of just like, and back to that overall point, there's just like, once we talked about the ego a bit on the bus, and it's just like, once you identify how much ego is driving everybody's outlook on everything, you know, like really, like that overall outlook on Johnny is just like, man, all right, if you're good, say my dad was Roger Federer, right? And he's just an amazing tennis player, and I had these God-given, I grew up around tennis. It was just everything. I was just God-given ability. I was the next one. So, am I indebted? I have to play tennis. If I don't want to get out of bed and go fucking practice and be the best tennis player, then why the fuck should I? You know what I mean? That's my outlook on it. It's just like, if overall, with our time on earth, doesn't matter what your gifts are, your skills are, it's about doing what you love, man. Like, it really is. And that's how you have true happiness. It's not about, there's guys who are amazing businessmen, and they're like, yo, I gotta run these businesses, and they end up missing all this time with their family, and they go on and have these storied careers. But then at the end of it all, you know what I mean? Like, none of that's really gonna matter.
Right, just the ego in general, but everybody has that.
Everyone has it.
You know what I mean? It's like,
everyone has
like
it.
us growing up. You were probably the same way.
Yeah,
I would assume before you find kind of this enlightenment, like you like sit back and, you know, you're the same like jock growing up, really good at your sport. And you talk about having a son and you want him to be just like you.
100%.
Because it's your ego.
Yeah.
So if you never get out of that and you become, you know, the Roger Federer of your story, or if I have my son and I want him to be like his old man.
Will Compton Jr.
Like, you know, this is what I was about. This is what you're going to be about. Made him play football all the time. Like, this, you got it in you. It's somewhere in you. You're just not tapping into it. That's like me projecting my ego onto him.
Bingo.
And then whenever he's like, you know, the person you explained that doesn't want to get up, like, it's just not in me to do it.
Right.
That's where the resentment kind of happens between like the whole father-son. That's where a lot of this shit happens, man. It is.
100%. And dude, most of his depression, like he was very depressed for a while, like bad.
Yeah.
And
you can only imagine.
Yeah.
Like we weren't 100x of whatever we are.
Right.
And he was, like he said, in the same breath.
Yeah.
Like he was a gift, bro. He was Money Manziel.
100%.
Like you turned it on, you wanted to see some magic.
Yeah. And a lot of that depression though, and I said it to him on the bus, he was talking about a situation. I was like, Johnny, you had to forgive yourself. Like the depression was the shame of like, he believed what everyone else thought too. He was like, oh man, I fucked this up. I had all these gifts and I threw them away, you know? And there's validity to that, right? There's validity to that. Like you can make that argument and there's obviously tons of actions of his that are regrettable, right?
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, dude, what is it about at the end of the day? It's really like his breakthrough was just like, he had the realization, and a lot of it was through our conversations. Just like, dude, who gives a fuck if you don't want to play football anymore? A cool comparison is like, we just had this conversation on one of the episodes gonna come out soon. Just like, right now, as his friend, I'm watching him. We could party and we still have wild nights. He's not nearly as wild as he used to be, but the guy's he's the Heisman of partying too.
Yeah.
God's given, like he could just do it. You know what I mean? And he's good at it.
Right.
Doesn't miss a tea time.
Right.
They had to go fucking, the Cleveland Browns fucking assistant coach had to go scoop him out of bed, Texas A&M, throw him in the back of the pickup truck and drive him over to fucking walkthroughs because he was blasted. Couldn't get out of bed. But he doesn't miss a tea time.
Right. But you can still, like, even looking back on it, like, even as Johnny, you can still, at that moment in time, I did want to play, but I loved the other stuff a little bit more.
Yeah.
But you can still kind of love, like, you can still love ball.
100%.
And still, at that moment, in those moments, have that regret. Like, looking back, like, yeah, of course I would do better stuff, just because there were other people involved.
Right.
And when it ultimately changes, you can't carry that same regret because it's like,
exactly.
Who cares at the end of the day,
exactly.
bro?
No,
you did care at one point in time, and it's all good that you did.
100%.
But you got to have self-compassion enough to realize, like, it's behind you now.
Exactly.
Like, you can't continue to carry that baggage with you.
Self-compassion is really what it's about, and that's what it was for him.
Yeah.
It was just forgiving him. It was, and also just a perspective shift on it. I was just like, dude, do you want to be Russell Wilson right now? Reverse lives. Just wake up every day, you get fucking right over there and you start studying. And you're fucking telling everyone you know every goddamn play. And you're like, yeah, every interview, yes, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you want to be that? Do you on your day-to-day schedule in your life, the way you're leading your life, are you happy? Like, what are the things that get your rocks off? I always say get your rocks off because that's what it's about to me.
Right.
It's like, yo, what gives me a rise? And I follow that rise. Something gives me a rise, I'm fucking walking towards it. Yeah. And for him, it's just like, that would be leading a lie. If he was Russell Wilson, his inner soul, his inner being, he's a good old boy. He wants, bro, I see his eyes light up.
Yeah, he talked about playing darts.
Yeah,
beer pong and shit.
He's like one of those dudes, he's just a legend. He just is what he is, you know what I mean? Like, he had that era, awesome. Be proud of it. Why can't the entire community just be like, you were one of the best to ever do that? Yeah. You didn't want to play anymore. You got into partying. That cool. Share the story. And that's why I did Ball Don't Lie with him. And you ready?